All right, we're back in the lab for episode 4 of DubCast. Another week, another great handicapper in the studio. Very pleased to introduce to kind of the DubCast universe, Unit King 777. You can follow him on Twitter at Unit King 777. Unit King is known probably primarily for his Loch Ness Monsters and more generally for his 1 to 10 unit betting scale, which is very, I would say, unique in the industry. So know you've got a band of extremely loyal followers who are probably thrilled to hear the voice behind the Unit King logo, not Burger King trademark conflict. But UK, please say hello to listeners at home, and really pleased to have you on the show.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks, boys, for having me on. Very happy to be here, and honestly, so impressed with all the stuff you guys got going on, and how into it you guys are. So yeah, really honored to be here.
We are thrilled to have you on as well. I think the best way to start out these is kind of getting the listeners a bit of a peek behind the curtain for your origin story. You are, someone who's very, I would say, private on Twitter in terms of not being showy with the face, with your persona. It's all about Unit King himself, kind of a Batman kind of way of going about things. But give us a peek into the Bruce Wayne behind Batman and kind of a bit of your origin story, how you got into the Twitter ecosystem, and why you found such success building a following there.
Yeah, sure. So I started gambling in general when I was about 16 or 17. I grew up near Atlantic City. Started with, the generic games of blackjack, roulette, and sort of poker, Texas Hold'em, all that stuff. Lewis, you actually strike me as a roulette guy. Are you?
I'm a big blackjack guy.
Blackjack?
I have given a lot of money to casinos across this fine country.
Yeah,
So
I'm with you there.
roulette is just too depressing for me. It's a game of silent desperation. I like craps.
Yeah.
But blackjack's my favorite.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I might be the world's worst roulette player. Uh, but no, I grew up, sort of playing those games, and then I got into sports betting with a few buddies. I like that, as you're saying, you had a little bit more control with sports betting. You also didn't lose your money in 20 seconds when the dealer flips over ace queen. So, really enjoyed, just learning about sports betting. I was probably the most square bettor when I first started, as everybody is. But I started following some sharp guys in the industry, then connected with some buddies in college, followed people that build out their own algorithms, followed line movement, all that sort of stuff, and just got more and more fascinated with it. And it kind of grew over time. And then towards the end of my college experience, I started Unit King with a few of my buddies, and they're all about the banter. Unit Prince being one of them. As you guys, I'm sure you guys know who Unit Prince
The
is.
world famous Unit Prince.
Yeah. I mean, he's an absolute riot. But he, along with some of my other buddies, helped me grow the following. And honestly started with, I would have sort of bigger plays on the weekends, and my buddies would be like, "Give me your best play this weekend. I want to tail that one." And they would kind of go balls to the wall on that, and I would be taking a bunch of games, and sometimes they'd be, sort of winning more than I was, and I'd be like, "Wow, this kind of sucks." So that's kind of how I adopted the 10 unit system, because there's more variance, and I figured if I was doing better at the larger plays, I might as well scale back my 1 unit bets, and provide more variability there. So that's kind of how it started. But then from a marketing aspect, I was like, guys, I gotta learn how to market this in a way where people are going to be attracted to it, and they could tell their friends. So at first, I mean, I'm probably the least creative guy of all time. I was like trying to do a play on words with Unit King, and I said like the royal play, and everybody was like, "No, that kind of sucks." So
Boo.
yeah, so that was quickly shot down, and then one of my buddies, he came up with Loch Ness Monster, and everybody was like, "Yeah, absolutely, hands down." So started using that. It just kind of caught fire. It honestly was just like I wouldn't say a joke, but like I didn't expect it to take off at all the way it did. but the sort of demographic that I had was for younger guys that were similar to the age of mine that you know were into the banter, into sort of just following somebody that was kind of like them, and then it just kind of took off from there. I remember one of my buddies was playing golf out in California, um, and he was playing ahead of a foursome, and behind him on the tee box, he heard them murmuring about the Unit King, and he shot me a
Oh,
text. So I just ran into instances like that over and over, and kind of just rode the way from there. So that's the long and short of it.
amazing. And maybe for listeners who haven't kind of been exposed to your approach before or aren't as familiar with your approach, talk us through the 10 unit system. Most cappers are following maybe 1 to 3 units, 1 to 5 units. You are very much a 1 to 10 unit guy, and the Loch Ness is kind of the 10
Right.
unit monster, if you will. Why have you kind of found this high variance approach to be super successful? How is it different than most other cappers? Because it's not like you're just pushing out, 10 unit plays. Your card is full on a weekend.
Right.
1 unit plays, 3 unit plays, 5 unit plays, and then you throw in the Loch Ness as well. So kind of this is a gambling system that's probably not for the faint of heart, but
Right.
it's also been extremely profitable.
Right.
And after you kind of give your spiel, I'll run down some stats for the listeners that are gross. But it's clearly a system that's worked for you, and you gave us a little bit of a peek behind the curtain in terms of how it came to be. But how have you refined your model and scoring algorithms over time, and why has it been a winner for you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a, I've gotten some feedback that was negative from it. A lot of people follow that traditional approach that you speak of, but for me, it was just a matter of gathering data from years of gambling and realizing, that was the best way to go about it. Like I said, I was hitting my the bets that I really liked the most. I was hitting that at a way higher percentage than I was, my 1 to 3 unit bets. So it just made sense for me. And it's one of those things where people like go through phases, and you get hot, you get cold, and things like that. But over time, if you can keep that percentage with it, whether it's between 65 and 75% at those plays, it just ultimately the math checks out and it makes sense. So that's kind of what I found, and I have had no reason to change it. Obviously, you go through dry spells, everybody does, but up until this point, especially this time of year, it just ultimately made sense for the most profitability.
So on the not dry spell front, you are coming off an insane week in college football and NFL. I'm looking at your Week 18 recap, 35, 20, and 1 for plus 64 units. Again, this is a 10-unit scale, so there's a ton of variance.
Right.
And there are some fucking bonkers weeks like last one where you can
Yeah.
kind of retire from the day job. What is it about the end of the year that gets you so locked in? I was looking at your NFL playoff stats from last year, and they are kind of equally bananas, with Super Bowl hitting big on Bucks +3, Bucks money line, first half and full game unders. You were plus 20 units in the NFC AFC championship games and plus 40 units in the college football playoff last year. Like, what is it about the end of the year and this high variance system that gets you so locked in and you're just printing winners?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the methodology that I have in terms of following sort of line movement, volume, public consensus, all that sort of thing. And as the season goes on, Vegas and the bookmakers get sharper with how they set lines, just because of the data that they compile throughout the year. And especially towards the end of the season, they have the highest volume games, so those are typically the most attractive for my betting scale and the indicators that I have. So with that, that's kind of, I mean, albeit at 2 years might be a small sample size, but I've actually seen this year in, year out. Have always done well, college football playoff, towards the end of the season, in bowl games and NFL playoffs. But in years past, I've honestly done really well in March Madness too. Obviously, last year with COVID was sort of an anomaly for me. It was very hard to predict what was going to happen, who was going to start, who was sitting, who wasn't. So that's kind of why this year I've tried to be more particular about the games I take, especially more recently as more news comes in. I've started adding leans, but not actual plays on my account, and I've received positive feedback from that because it just shows that you're not taking every game you see or every game you kind of like, and then while tracking that you also receive data, so I can go in 3 months and look at all the games I didn't take that I sort of liked or may have taken in years past, and retroactively see what I would have been up or down based on those numbers. So
Great. And I think that response kind of highlights a couple things that are interesting about your approach. First of all, like, you're a very polished dude intellectually. You're clearly data oriented and refreshing, looking back, and kind of continually modifying your
right.
approach, which is super impressive, and I think sets you apart as opposed to just kind of being unidirectional, going down the train tracks, which can be kind of put your blinders on. The other thing is COVID, and I think we thought kind of the COVID impact on games was done once we got the vaccines and all that shit.
Right.
But it seems like we have a round two of volatility and uncertainty with all the NBA scratches, ton of college football scratches, and both for COVID and for just opt-outs. But that being said, you fucking crushed it. So how have you kind of changed your style or modified your process, if at all, to account for this increased uncertainty in terms of who's playing on
Right.
Saturday or whatever the Music City Bowl is?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point, honestly. And one of the things that I like to do, I think that's helped me, is that I don't have sort of a standard, a one-dimensional algorithm that a lot of sharp bettors have out there, and especially with COVID injuries, who's in, who's out, sort of thing, that becomes very difficult. I mean, you can just not play the game, and a lot of guys do that, but I like to gather the consensus as well of sharp bettors out there and use multiple algorithms in that fashion rather than just sticking to one algorithm with one specific set of data and go off of that. So I think that's helped me sort of massage and nuance the way I look at games, as I'm just trying to take in as much information from different people as possible as well. Having injury updates, weather updates, all of that thing, I think is necessary to be a good handicapper. But on top of that, going above and beyond and trying to find guys out there that get the news before everybody else. Because a part of my system that, is looked at or frowned upon is that I don't get as much closing line value as some of the other guys out there, is because I post my picks out late, but a lot of that has to do with injuries, late scratches, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a matter of just being open to all the information out there and not just sort of getting that tunnel vision and just focusing on your one algorithm, because everybody's tried it. Nobody can beat the books on one algorithm. That's the bottom line. So
Super interesting. Let's talk a bit about college hoops. You are known as the football guy,
right.
I think. At least me, because I got exposed to your account in the fall. I was like, holy shit, who is this guy? He's a machine. College football, NFL, et cetera, et cetera. But you are also a hoops handicapper. So NFL playoffs coming down the pike. You're a monster that time of year. Now's a great time to tap in to get the premium plays. But that's not the end of the Unit King story.
Right.
Maybe give us a bit of background on kind of how you approach hoops. I know you said March Madness is a time where you really look forward to. It's really coming up on us fast. So walk us down kind of this time of the year with college football playoff coming to an end, NFL playoffs kicking off, and college hoops in full speed ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, I first learned about sort of reverse line movement and things like that as one of my major indicators through college basketball. Just following the way line was moving and tracking what teams won as the line was moving in their direction towards the tip off. And I had major success with that over, that, conference championship week into March Madness and all of that stuff. So, honestly, I would say football was probably, or college football was probably my third best behind. It went college basketball, NBA, and then college football and MLB were kind of similar. But that's kind of flip-flopped since then. And again, a big part of that was the COVID issues last year
Hmm.
in basketball, and the way the line was moving based off of that. So again, like what I talked about previously, it was a matter of for this year really taking into account the line movement as opposed to sharp movement and taking into account the injuries and the COVID news as well. So like I said, I've just trying to be more particular about the games I take with college basketball, and even more. I think NBA is the biggest crapshoot of them all. Like I have no idea. I can't bet on the Lakers or the Nets ever because you never know who's resting. Or I mean, the people that can profit from those teams are the ones that know when LeBron, Kevin Durant are resting and try to get value that way. But I just can't. I just can't do that. So I just stay away from those teams in general, or at least try to. So yeah, I would say it's just a matter of being more particular. And I'm super excited about college basketball. I've kind of done well over the last week and a half or so, and I think that's going to continue as the books get sharper towards the end of the season and into March Madness. So
Your approach is very contrarian
oh yeah,
to a lot of handicappers who are kind of trying to get out early, et cetera, find the CLV,
right,
and find a lot of value early in the season. They post big numbers
right.
in college basketball in early November. That's not the fact that as the books get sharper, so do you. I think is really interesting for our subscribers who are looking to maybe diversify their handicapper portfolio, if you will.
Right.
So now with the NFL playoffs coming down the pike, and this is kind of your Super Bowl in addition to the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
I think it's a great time to kind of dive in, and we've got some really compelling offers on the table to kind of get new subscribers exposed to your style with NFL in its kind of your prime zone, and college hoops really heating up as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, undoubtedly. I'll just be candid here. I typically don't do as well in the beginning of any season, whether it's baseball, basketball, or football. But towards the end of the season, that's where I traditionally do best, and I think the the numbers have shown that year in year out. That's kind of why I ramp out. I've gotten a lot of questions about this actually, like why are there no Lockness Monster basketball picks yet? And that's in large part due to the fact that the volume on the games isn't as high as it will be once the football season is over. So a lot of my indicators come into play once the season gets ramped up, and we're in that sweet spot right now where we're coming down to the wire in football, and it's the best time of the year.
So interesting, and I think, like I said, it's such a good balance for a lot of other handicappers out there to kind of have the ebb and flow of when people are hitting at their best. So, as we talked about, this is kind of the best time of the year for you. As a special for Dub Club subscribers, we're going to offer a one-day package with promo code UKNatty at checkout. You can get a one-day pass to get a one-day product for the national championship coming up Monday night, Georgia-Bama, and you'll get all of the plays associated with that game. And we're also going to be launching a special product that will get you through the end of the NFL playoffs. So details to follow. Make sure to follow Unit King 777 on Twitter as he releases updates on his pricing and packaging for that. But maybe for the balance of this chat, we'll just talk about kind of what subscribers can expect from your Dub Club feed. Those people who are maybe trying you out for the first time with the Natty Pass or the VIP Pass. How has kind of Dub Club changed the way you interact with subscribers, how many plays and the kinds of plays you can expect to see, and what's the feedback been so far? This is kind of a time for you to brag and promote a bit.
No, I mean honestly, it's been unreal. It's really made life simpler for both myself and my loyal followers out there. But it's also been a learning process in and of itself, right? So I was posting each play individually first, and they would get a bunch of different texts. And I received feedback like, "Come on, dude, this is brutal." So then I started trying to separate it by sport. Received feedback that was good, but we just kind of want all the plays at the same time. So now I sort of do a full card. You'll see what time the game's being played, what sport it is, how many units, and then if there are any updates prior to the game that I think of or that I post, it'll say sort of correction. The units have been updated, or scratch this game if you haven't already placed, or try to hedge out, something along those lines. And I've now incorporated sort of, as I mentioned earlier, leaning this way, but not a play for me, just for you know my followers so they can see kind of where I'm going with it, and for myself where I can track the data later on down the road. And then every day, the next morning, I post a recap of the night before, my thoughts on the game. Sometimes, just a brief summary. And yeah, it's been awesome, and I'm really looking forward to the national championship game. You guys know I got a big one coming. But yeah, no, I'm super excited about it, and really appreciate all the work you guys put in.
Well, I think we track a lot of metrics for our handicappers who are on the Dub Club platform. And you are not a guy with the biggest Twitter following.
Right.
You're a guy with 3,500 Twitter followers. There are people on the platform with 15, 20, 30,000 guys. But like in terms of the loyalty of your followers and the percent of people who are making the jump from Twitter into Dub Club is kind of like top of the charts. So clearly you're delivering a ton of value. People love this unique variance-oriented system, and now is the perfect time with NFL and the stretch run and college basketball heating up to hop in with the Natty Pass or the VIP playoff pass. So I'm sure you will have a lot of happy subscribers come February paying for their Valentine's Day dinner with some units earned from UK. But thanks so much for hopping on. Super fun interview, and look forward to what's to come.
Yep. Thanks, boys. I appreciate it. Looking forward to meeting you guys soon out in Vegas, hopefully, or something.
Absolutely.
Got to get to the blackjack table. Let's see what it's about.
Absolutely.
Thanks again to Unit King for coming on the show today, giving us such a great peek into his approach, his backstory, and all that great stuff. Make sure to give him a follow on Twitter at UnitKing777, and remember to use promo code UKNatty at checkout for 25% off his one-day package in advance of Monday's national championship game. Thanks again for listening, and best of luck.